Frank. Just a couple for you from myself. Just you mentioned there earlier on in the call before we got going that you had spoken to Tyson. We saw his videos after the fight. I was just wondering if you could tell us a bit about what Tyson said to you and how excited he is by the potential of that undisputed fight now.
Well, he said if he'd been fighting them, I think he said it publicly, he said he'd stop them both. And that's what he feels about it. I mean, I feel he'd just be listening to, Joe's comments, which are, they're absolutely spot on. I think with Tyson, I think it'd be too big. I think Tyson's got he's got far better hand speed than Joshua, and he moves better, and he's much quicker on his feet than Joshua. So I think he feels that he'll stop him, and I think I'll be surprised if he didn't stop him.
You mentioned there was a little bit of talks before the Joshua fight with Usyk's team, but you were kind of waiting for Tyson to decide what he was doing with the future.
It's all pointless until you got the result. So the result is in now, and now we can look to see what we can all try and do to make it work. I've got to make sure that Joe gets his opportunity, and I've done that by getting this fight on the 24th. And I'm pleased in some ways that Joyce-Parker sodded us around, because he got the cobwebs out of his system in that last fight, and I think I think that was a good plus for him. And as he says, he's got into the gym now, and it's puts him in a better position, having getting that rust out of his system. And I just it's just going to be really interesting times. Whatever happens, if he carries on, and he said himself, Usyk, if he doesn't fight Tyson, then he doesn't want to fight anybody else. That tells you if he doesn't want to fight him, he's basically saying he retired. If he retires, then it's all thrown open wide again. And as I say, Joe, whatever happens, Joe's in a marvellous position, provided he does the business on the 24th, which I really do expect him to do. I mean, we're going to be in opposite corners, Tyson and me, on the 24th. It'll be quite interesting. Thankfully, Joe does the business in the ring, and Joyce-Parker is not going to have anybody to help him once that bell goes. He's on his own, and he's in with a tough guy in Joe Joyce.
Last one from me, Frank. Appreciate it's early days to be talking Fury-Usyk logistics, but you mentioned maybe we go back to Saudi Arabia by the time Usyk's ready.
Who knows?
Winter months. Is the Millennium Stadium a possibility with the closed roof?
You know what? So at the moment, everything's too. All I know is you've got two parties who get on very well with each other. So there's no rival TV companies involved. It's going to be that side of it's going to be pretty easy to do, pretty easy to accommodate. It's just finding out where, because they got high expectation values of expectations of what they're going to get paid for the fight, is where it generates the money that gets them the money that they feel they're worth.
Frank, what did you make of the situation straight after the fight where Anthony Joshua chucked Oleksandr Usyk's belts out the ring?
Well, he obviously felt he won the fight. That's what I felt. And the corner was telling him during the fight that he was winning it, which I didn't understand. I don't know who was saying it in the corner, but whoever was saying that obviously got it drastically wrong. And I felt that, he threw those belts, he stormed out the ring, and I think by the time he got to the entrance, either somebody said something to him or he had second thoughts, and he came back and he obviously realised that his actions were a bit foolish. And then it just went off on a bizarre, he went off on this thing about, having nearly gone to...
A bit like a rant.
Sorry?
Yeah, it was like a rant.
Yeah, and he went about prison. But you know what? Look, it's terrible. All those things, what he says about what happened, they're in the past, and he's been blessed. I mean, he's been blessed. He's made a lot of money. He was in the right place at the right time to fight Charles Martin. He's had a really good, he's done well for himself, extremely well for himself. He can't say he never had any amateur experience. He fought in the World Championships in, I think it was it Uzbekistan or wherever it was, and he got to the final, got the silver. I think he got robbed in that. The Olympic Games, he won a gold medal. He's fought in numerous amateur events over the years. So he had a vast amount of amateur experience. There's no doubt about that. Having said that, he's had his problems, but everybody's got a bit of baggage. Sonny Liston had baggage. Mike Tyson had baggage. And that's what it's about. You can't. I don't know why I didn't understand why he referred back to that, especially when he's in the ring with a guy who's probably got the worst baggage of anybody at the moment in boxing, whose family are are being bombed and God knows what in the Ukraine, who's, you know, actually was in the army for a while, and can imagine what's on his mind going into that fight, and having to train whilst your homeland's getting destroyed by the enemy. And I just didn't understand it. I felt that it was like an outpouring. It was like busting, busting a boil or something. It all came out, all that stuff, and it came out, I think, in a very jumbled way. And it's quite sad. I felt, you know, I don't want to be patronising saying I felt sorry, but I felt he got it all wrong at the wrong time, and he tried to make it right by, you know, sort of at the end acknowledging that Usyk was the champion. But that the end of the fight should be about the champion. It's all about Usyk, and that's what it should have been. And he done phenomenally well, you know. And he won. You know, I don't think in that fight there's just one moment where he got caught with a big right hand. Other than that, he was in no damage. And I agree entirely with what Joe said. You know, in and out, smart, taking a lot of stuff on the gloves or just out of range. They weren't, you know, solid connection from AJ, but he did try and he did fight better than he did last time. But you know what? Now it's you know, he's now, that's his third loss, and he's if he carries on, and maybe he will, maybe he won't, I don't know. But he's in a catch-up club now. You know, all these guys, Joe's sitting there now, they're all past him. They're in front of him. And he's now, he wants to get a seat back at the table. He's got to work his way through. He's coming off of 2 losses, so he's not going to get into any mandatory position. There's some great domestic fights for him, you know, down the road. Again, with Joe, there's a great fight between him and Joe. You've got Daniel Dubois. There's, you know, a few other fights there for him to have good domestic fights. If he gets some wins under his belt, who knows, maybe Tyson. But all anybody cares about at the moment, as far as that unification is concerned, is seeing that fight between Usyk and Tyson, getting that on. And in the meantime, Joe's in a magnificent fight. I mean, a great fight. On paper, it's a fantastic fight. And that, again, is, you know, he comes through that fight, which I expect him to do. He's at the top table. I mean, when he says he's at the top table, he's got the first mandatory. The first mandatory, I understand, is the WBO. And that's where he's at. And I've got to tell you, on the card as well, I watched it, and I was quite surprised. I watched that Herjovic and the Chinese guy, his name Zen or whatever his name is, Zeng, Big Bang. And I was quite surprised. I mean, I you know, I've never really seen much of him, and it's the first time I sort of watched him, and he didn't impress me at all. I was very, very surprised about him. So, you know, all this talk about, you know, everyone's avoiding him, I don't see what there is to avoid, to be quite honest. You know, he seemed a bit all over the place. But look, the heavyweight scene is in a good shape. It's now up to the British fighters to come out and get the titles and bring them back to the UK, or get those 3 belts back to the UK. So it's exciting times.